So after 3 nights in Lerwick, I think Jill was quite happy to be leaving. We set sail for Pierowall, and then from Pierowall, after a night at anchor, we planned to go to Pierowall in Westray. This involves going past Sunborough Head, and that brings me to something I know I've mentioned before, and that is electronic charting and care when using them. Have a look at this chart here. Sunborough Head, no problem until you zoom in enough, and then suddenly, boom. You see that there's a huge roost or race there called the Sunborough Roost, and the notes in the almanac are quite clear on that. It says, beware a most violent and dangerous race or roost off Sunborough Head at the south end of mainland on both streams. So really clear, and yet if you didn't zoom in on the chart, you'd have no clue what you might be going into. So we left 2.5 miles of offing to give us lots and lots of room, and then all I did was time it to arrive when the roost should not be there. And once we visually confirmed that it wasn't there, we were able to just bypass that waypoint, cut the corner, and as you can see, go quite close to Sunborough Head and make our way off to Pierowall. Well, you don't often get to see this clearly, so I'm just going to point it out. Look at this front. We've come under by Sunborough Head over there. We're on our way to Pierowall, and it's all just cleared up beautifully because this front came across. Just look at that. It's only when you're at sea you get to see such phenomenon so clearly. Isn't that good?
Hi everyone. This is to show you my new hat that I bought in Lerwick, which turns out is way too big for me because I've only got a tiny little head. But it is lovely and warm, so that's really cool. Anyway, we have just arrived back in our favourite anchorage so far, the one in Pierowall that you've all seen before. And the sun's just come out as we got here. We've had a funny day of weather. When we left Lerwick this morning, it was pouring with rain. Actually, it wasn't raining when we actually left. It was really grey and horrible, and then it started pouring with rain. It was grey and mizzy and horrible, and then we came through it and it was beautiful. And then just as we got back to Pierowall, it kind of misted over again, but just as we've anchored, it's the sun's come out again, so it's really lovely. Not enough wind to sail again, so we've motor sailed all the way across here. Really pleased to be in the anchorage again. Wouldn't go back to Lerwick. It was a really, really bumpy, miserable, noisy port, and yeah, it wasn't that nice, but this is gorgeous, and we've had a good time coming across. It's taken us a few hours. Look at that lovely blue sky now behind me. It's gorgeous, and I've left my hat on because my hair looks great under here. Not. I don't think we've got anything else to report really. What else have I got to report? That's it. That's today. The tender's already up and out and on the water ready to go. I'd quite like to go exploring because it's low tide, and if you look over there, there are some interesting looking caves that I'd quite like to go and explore. Might even get my swim here this time, because last time we just had a walk, and there's a rock pool somewhere that's good for swimming, so I might try and find that. But yeah, it's beautiful. Very happy to be here, and photos to follow. I knew there was something else. I forgot to say that on the way in, I saw my very first puffin just floating on top of the water. I tried to take a photo, but he dived underneath before I could get him, but I have seen one. We've left Pierowall, which is over there, and the bit where I'm pointing now is just this side of the bit where I swam last night. You can see the lighthouse that was in some of my photos. As the captain, we are in an interesting bit of sea, just going over a shallower bit, which is making the sea a little bit rougher than it was when we first came out of the harbour. So I'm sitting tight and not going anywhere, because we're really rolling around, as you can see. It's great fun. Love it when the waves are like this.
The weather forecast for Pierowall was for winds between east and northeast, with speeds of 13 to 15 knots. We plan to use the anchorage in about 2 metres of water, which is tucked up behind the western wall of Pierowall Harbour. Just as I was setting up the anchor, as we were actually about to lower it, the wind dramatically increased to about 20 to 30 knots, and as often happens when the wind speed went up, it also veered to settle southeasterly, and this made the anchorage really quite uncomfortable, and it made the boat actually difficult to handle in the limited space available because of the swirling round the wall. So we ended up diving into the harbour and spent a couple of nights there waiting for the weather to blow through. This was entirely a mistake on my part during planning, because had I thought about it, the risk of this happening was reasonable, bearing in mind the weather forecast. Bearing that in mind, a much better option would have been to go to the bay midway down the island of Ede, which was just 3 miles further from Pierowall than Pierowall was 6 miles closer to our next destination, Stromness, and was sheltered from the east right round to the southwest, so in all of the forecast conditions would have been perfect. I hope you found that useful or interesting, or even better, both. If so, don't forget, click like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. These things really help the channel grow. See you soon.